You are watching the world 24/7 on the NDTV network. I'm Parmeshwar Bawa. We've got an action-packed bulletin lined up for you. Let's begin with the headlines for tracking current. Major ceasefire violation by Pakistan. There are reports of firing at the international border. Separately, reports of a sixth straight night of ceasefire violation by Pakistan along the LOC. British Member of Parliament Bob Blackman has strongly condemned the terrorist attack in Pahalgam, raising the issue in the UK Parliament and calling for unwavering support to India in its fight against terrorism. US President Donald Trump celebrated the 100th day of his second term, yet spent much of his rally in Michigan marking it in campaign mode, fixated on past grudges and grievances. Donald Trump has expressed optimism about ongoing trade discussions with India, saying the talks were progressing well and he expected a deal to be reached. Meanwhile, the US president has moved to soften the impact of his automotive tariffs, preventing duties on foreign-made cars from stacking on top of each other. Tariffs he has imposed and eased some of the levies on foreign parts used to manufacture cars in the United States. After the Liberals' victory in Canada, Mark Carney says the old relationship with the United States is over. Well, breaking news we're tracking currently regarding the major ceasefire violation by Pakistan. Further to the previous update that Shiv Arur had given us regarding the 29th-30th April night, unprovoked small arms firing by Pakistan Army was also reported from their posts across the line of control in Baramulla and Kupwara districts, as well as across the international border. Indian Army troops did respond appropriately, but Shiv Arur joins us regarding the latest information he has about the firing at the international border. Shiv, what are the latest details you can disclose to our viewers?
This is a very, very big escalation in hostilities from the Pakistan Army's side for 5 days running since the Pahalgam terror attack. Ceasefire violations have been concentrated on the line of control. Last night, they escalated and expanded to the international border. This is the first time that the international border has been activated by the Pakistan Army since the Pahalgam massacre and constitutes not only a huge escalation, but a very clear and deliberate attempt by the Pakistan Army to try and trigger some kind of a military response from the Indian Army. The Indian Army has issued a statement saying that they've responded in appropriate measure, which means exchanges of fire have been taking place, in Sundarbani, Naushera, Kupwara, Baramulla, Akhnur, and now the Pargwal sector. Pargwal is in the Jammu division. It's on the international border, not very far from the city of Sialkot in Pakistan. There's been a lot of misinformation or unverified information on social media about damage on either side. None of this is verified right now, and we, of course, will only report details, but we have a categorical confirmation this morning, breaking first here as always on NDTV, that the Pakistan Army has violated the ceasefire and fired not just across the line of control, but also at the international border for the first time. This is a big escalation, and all of these escalations put together constitute also the biggest ceasefire violations by the Pakistan Army since the 2021 Indo-Pak ceasefire agreement. It was signed in February 2021. And in the 5 years since, the last 6 days basically constitute the biggest ceasefire violations. When you add Pargwal to the entire matrix right now, it just shows that the arc of hostilities down from the line of control, expanding southward to the international border, means that Pakistan is itching to get some kind of a response, so it has clarity as to what is on the Indian military mind at this point of time. The Indian side is holding its measure and is responding appropriately and effectively, but is not being provoked into a bigger escalation.
Shiv, meanwhile, citing what they call credible intelligence. Pakistan is saying that India is planning military action against Islamabad within the next 24 to 36 hours.
Look, the Pakistani meltdown as a result of the huge ambiguity and uncertainty is only understandable. You know, India has very admirably not given out any indication of what its plans really are, military or otherwise. You know, when it takes action, it simply announces them. When military action is taken, it simply happens. There is no pre-warning. So after Uri, after Balakot, you know, Pakistan has been on tenterhooks. So in some ways, we can say that this meltdown, this kind of national anxiety, this almost paralytic, you know, sense of uncertainty over what's going to come next from the Indian side is an after effect and a lasting after effect, if I may add, of what happened after Uri and Balakot. Those two operations may not have deterred Pakistan as far as terrorism is concerned, and Pahalgam has proven that. But after Prime Minister Modi met the three service chiefs yesterday, you know, after those words that came out where he said he gives the Indian Armed Forces the operational freedom, you know, and the mode, targets and timing of their choice to do whatever they want as far as India's response is concerned, you can only imagine the alarm bells that will be clanging through the Pakistani system. Because in the past, you know, there have been indications of what India might do. A special forces attack across the Uri sector, you know, air bombings also. Pakistan may have had some kind of intelligence, we don't know. But this time, things are hugely ambiguous. There is no certainty, no clarity whatsoever. You know, to most people who know about these things, even on the Indian side, you know, there is an admirable lack of clarity over what India's, you know, next options are going to be. So therefore, the Pakistani anxiety is only understandable, and it will only increase. And it's one of the reasons why they're continuing to violate the ceasefire. You know, increase the belligerence, increase the intensity, increase the hostility, increase the scope into the international border, because they want to try and provoke a response, because a response would make, you know, it clear what is on the Indian mind. And India doesn't want to do that. They are playing the time and place of our choosing game right now.
Shiv, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown from Srinagar. As Shivarur is reporting, this is a very steady escalation. It is not sporadic, and it seems as a deliberate attempt by the Pakistan army to trigger an Indian response. For now, let's turn our attention to the United Kingdom, where British Member of Parliament Bob Blackman strongly condemned the recent terrorist attack in Pahalgam, raising the issue in the UK Parliament and also calling for unwavering support to India in its fight against terrorism. In fact, he described the massacre as a systematic killing of Hindus and Christians, I'm quoting him here, and said it was a well-organized, well-coordinated attack intended to terrorize civilians and destabilize peace in the region. Just listen in to his full remarks.
The reality of this terrorist attack, which was well organised, well coordinated, was, despite the minister's words, these 26 men who were murdered systematically by being shot in the head were either Hindu or Christian. And there was a deliberate Islamist attack on those tourists who were just going about their business in a peaceful manner. These terrorists were well equipped, they were well coordinated. And the sad reality is this: whilst the government may give expressions of condolences and support for the people of India, the fact remains that the terrorist bases that exist along the line of control in the illegal part of Kashmir, illegally occupied by Pakistan, still continue to operate across that line of control.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi will chair a crucial meeting of the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs, the most important committee of the Cabinet that has also been dubbed the Super Cabinet. Now, this meeting comes after a round of meetings of the Cabinet Committee of Security, which is the next one being due on Wednesday, following last week's shocking massacre of tourists in Pahalgam. After another crucial meeting with Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, National Security Advisor G. Doval and Chief of Defence Staff General Anil Chauhan, the Prime Minister gave the armed forces complete freedom to decide on the mode, the targets and the timing of India's military response to the Pahalgam terror attack. This is what our sources have briefed us about. In this backdrop, the CCPA meet has raised speculation. Sunil Prabhu has been tracking all the finer developments for us. He joins us live at the moment. Sunil, so the Prime Minister is expected to hold key Cabinet Committee meetings on security?
That's right. This is the day usually scheduled on Wednesday for cabinet meetings, but gains importance in the backdrop of the Prime Minister meeting not only the three armed forces chiefs as well as the National Security Advisor, the Chief of Defence Staff, giving them operational command to an autonomy to take whatever the steps are required in terms of avenging what has been a horrific terrorist attack in the state of Jammu and Kashmir against innocent tourists. So it's in that backdrop that the Cabinet Committee on Security, the Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs, which is one of the highest policy bodies, as well as the Cabinet Committee will be meeting to take stock of the situation. This is the second Cabinet Committee on Security, and we'll have to wait and see what emerges from those meetings in the backdrop of, as you would probably have known, Pakistan is saying an imminent attack is there. But whatever they might say or do, India would like to be measured and with full proof, and whatever needs to be done to ensure that the perpetrators of this heinous crime are brought to justice.
Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump's first 100 days in office have spooked financial markets, tested legal bounds, and turned the federal government upside down, denting his poll numbers in the process as well. On the 29th of April, during a rally in Michigan, Trump claimed it's all going according to plan. Trump's second administration has opened with a furious blitz of conservative policy focused around deportations, deep cuts to federal agencies and tariffs. But polls show most Americans think he has gone too far on all of those issues. In fact, a New York Times Siena College Research Institute survey released on the 25th of this month found majorities of those surveyed disapprove of Trump's handling of the economy. They also disapprove of Trump's handling of immigration, the federal bureaucracy, and overall job performance. But just listen in to what the US president had to say in Michigan, followed by my colleague Simon Mark's report from Washington.
In 100 days, I've taken more than 1,000 executive actions, and I could recite our accomplishments all night long. And by the way, did you just see what I did? Straws. I wiped out the paper straw, little thing. These are the little things. Your sink. You ever try buying a new sink and no water comes out? Your shower heads, your toilets, the whole thing, it's a disaster. We now have it so you can have as much water as you want.
Donald Trump's speech in Michigan was heralded by the White House as an opportunity for the president to promote his achievements over the past 100 days. In the event, the speech was not just about looking back, but also about looking forward to the new golden age for the United States that the president says he is creating, and to the midterm elections next year. He claimed that the number one issue that propelled him to office was immigration. He vigorously defended his decision effectively to seal America's southern border with Mexico, claimed he had cut 99.9% of incoming illegal immigrants crossing that border. And he also indicated that his efforts to engage in mass deportations will not slow down, and that he wants the US Supreme Court to adjudicate whether lower-level judges have the power to constrain him. He is already accused of defying court orders as the deportations continue. On trade, the president claimed trillions of dollars in tariff revenues are now pouring into the United States. He promised the crowd in Michigan that their state will be one of many that will benefit from a revival in manufacturing industry in America, though most economists argue that will take years fully to materialize. He accused China of having engaged in the greatest theft of jobs in world history, and indicated that he believes there will be progress in talks with Beijing and many other governments aimed at easing the tariff burden. With regard to India, earlier in the day, he said talks between Washington and Delhi were going well, and he thought there could be progress to announce on trade soon. Most of all, the president rounded on his opponents, accusing former President Joe Biden of bringing the country to its knees, and the younger generation of Democrats of being radical left communists, expressing sympathies for criminal migrants who he characterized as the most violent savages on earth. With an eye on next year's midterm elections, the president asked who on earth would vote for the Democrats. And by tying his opponents to the issue of immigration, he seemed to be firing the first shots in the midterm campaign. There was no regret expressed about anything that he's done in office so far, only confidence being exuded that he is transforming America and determined that neither his political opponents nor the country's judges are going to stop him. Simon Marks, NDTV, Washington.
Joining us for a quick comment on the matter, live from Chicago, we have Richard Benkin. Richard, law-abiding migrants sent to foreign prisons, sweeping tariffs disrupting global markets, students detained for protests, violent insurrectionists pardoned, the Supreme Court ignored, and I'm not even done yet. Polls are indicating that the average American is dissatisfied. But take us through the sentiment on the ground. How are people reacting to Trump's first 100 days in office?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. And my prayers and those of many Americans are with the people of India right now. I think if you go on the ground, it really depends who you speak with. Some people are, there are people that would think everything he did was great. There are people that think that everything he does is horrible. So much of the stuff is really just going to take a little bit to bake. I think the tariffs are a great example. We saw a tremendous drop in the stock market after he announced tariffs, but actually right now the stock market's at 90% of the value it was on the day that he announced tariffs. So we have a lot to see. I think something very important is being missed with all these back and forth accusations, and I think this thing really affects India as much as the United States. For as long as I can remember, I've heard about the rise of China, the rise of China, rise of China. China has made no secret about wanting to form a coalition to supplant the United States as the dominant military and economic power in the world. And we know if that would happen, that would not be good for India. Certainly the Chinese economy is in trouble. It was in trouble before, but now with it losing its major consumer market, the United States, where we know of a lot of unemployment, factories closing, and in fact, just I think it was yesterday, one of the few factories that are open, there's a group of them that import ethane gas from the United States, and China put a retaliatory tariff on that, and they begged the Chinese to take it off, which they did. So we see that much. Beyond that, though, however, there are some real geopolitical developments that people are just missing. Indians are familiar with China's string of pearls strategy to encircle India, and a part of that is all the way on the Horn of Africa, in the port of Djibouti, which the Chinese have seized through Belt and Road.
For now, we're slipping into a very short commercial break. Back in a moment with much more. Do stay tuned. Well, in other news, the US President Donald Trump has expressed optimism about ongoing trade discussions with India, saying the talks were progressing well and he expected a deal to be reached. Talks with India on tariffs were coming along great, is what the US President has said. Listen in to his remarks.
I think we'll have a deal with India. The Prime Minister, as you know, was here 3 weeks ago, and they want to make a deal. We'll see what happens. Thank you. Thank you.
I think that we are very close on India. And in India, just a little inside baseball, India, in a funny way, is easier to negotiate with than many other countries because they have very high tariffs and lots of tariffs. So it's much easier to confront the direct tariffs when as we go through these unfair trade deals that have been put in over decades, that the non-tariff trade barriers can be much more insidious and also harder to detect. So a country like India, which has the posted and ready tariffs, it's much easier to negotiate with them. So I think the India negotiations are moving well.
With that, let's turn our attention now to Canada, where the 2025 federal election will be remembered as the game changer. Liberal leader Mark Carney pulled off a dramatic reversal of political fortunes after convincing voters he was the best candidate to fight annexation threats from United States President Donald Trump. An economist and political newcomer, Mr. Carney pulled it off despite predictions of a conservative landslide earlier this year. And Canadians have given the Liberals their fourth mandate since 2015, although the race against the Conservatives was much closer than polls predicted. But this shift is being described as unprecedented. Maha Siddiqui has been tracking all the final developments for us. She joins us live with a roundup of all the action. Maha, so Mark Carney wins the Canada polls and 22 Punjabis have made it too?
Yes, absolutely. As the opinion polls had been predicting for the last couple of weeks, the Liberals were able to get the largest number of seats in Parliament. But some voters, especially the Liberal supporters, have been disappointed because they were expecting that the Liberals would be able to cross that magic number of 172 and be able to form a majority government of their own. They believe that being in minority compromises the government, and then they are not able to pass the legislations. And sometimes the stability of that government is also not guaranteed for the entire term. And as many analysts sometimes say, that minority governments do not last too long. Some of them put the figure at about 2 years. 18 to 24 months sometimes is what minority governments are able to last. So there we are seeing a bit of a disappointment on part of the Liberal supporters. However, if you look at it realistically, it was a stunning comeback for the Liberals, considering that 3 months ago, it was a foregone conclusion that Pierre Poilievre would be the Prime Minister. And now we are in a situation where Pierre Poilievre has lost his own riding of Carlton. And also the other disappointment coming in for the other parties, the smaller parties, if I can call them that way, considering that these were the two main horses in the race, the Liberals and the Conservatives, the NDP and Bloc Quebecer, both losing their number of seats from last time as well. NDP reaching a situation where they might not have an official party status as well. They still continue to vote in Parliament, but I believe that some of their funding might go down because of losing that status as the party, as an official party. And therefore, you saw Jagmeet Singh stepping down as the NDP leader as well. Jagmeet Singh also lost his riding too. So clearly, this has been a very consequential election. But now all eyes on Mark Carney as to how he is going to take on US President Donald Trump, because that really has been the top of mind for the voters. And they're looking forward to how the economist, the banker, is going to be able to navigate the tricky terrain with US President Donald Trump from here on.
Well, Maha, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the lowdown. It's no surprise that Canada's federal election will be remembered as a total game changer. Thank you so much for investing your time and watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.